Alrighty. So in this video, I'm going to talk about the ESFJs. ESFJs are dope. They lead with extroverted feeling. Second function is introverted sensing. Third is extroverted intuition. And the fourth is introverted thinking. So let's look at how all these play out together. If you have extroverted feeling first and you have extroverted intuition second, that's kind of cool because now you're dealing with a type who gets a lot of ideas from their environment. FE is all about connection. FE is all about fitting in with the group. FE is all about fitting in with the system, not just in a way where you fit in and you blend in. It's in a way where you fit in and then you can run from there. Like fitting in the right spot so that you can grow. Because as a FE dominant user, you're learning from that group. You're learning from that environment. So when you place the ESFJ in the proper environment, they're going to soak in so much information and utilize that. Now, with FE and NE as their two main extroverted functions, you're looking at a person who can connect, who can communicate very well, who can blend in with the group very well, who has leadership quality, who carries themselves well with a good energy. But you're also looking at somebody who has ideas. They want to know. They want to communicate and converse ideas. See which way might be best. And what they do is they store all that information into their introverted sensing data bank. And that introverted sensing data bank, which is all the experiences they've had in the past, begin to come together, and they're connecting with that fourth function, which is introverted thinking, which is keeping everything logical. So it's like, okay, here's everything I'm learning, and it's leading me here. And eventually what happens is they gather powerful information and begin to be major players in the game of life, depending on whatever area they're in. Very fun people, very playful. Naturally with FE, they have an ability to not take themselves so seriously. But at the same time, they do carry themselves relative to what the environment is. That's one big thing about the ESFJ. They know how to blend with the environment, and they take that very serious. You won't find them showing up to a business meeting looking anything less than business ready, or showing up to a whatever. Like, it's about preparation. And with introverted sensing as a second function, ESFJs very much so value preparation. They value understanding what they're getting into. They need to know what they're getting into. They need to know what this is all about. Once they have, one big thing about ESFJs is they need a basis. Their second function is introverted sensing. This is the function that connects them with the external world from an internal level, meaning they're in an external environment. And how does that environment relate to them? Well, the way it relates to them is it has to connect to something that they've seen before, or that they've been in. Because if it doesn't, they're not going to feel comfortable, And their FE and NE will help them figure it out. I mean, they know how to go with the flow, but what they essentially do is they ask a lot of questions to figure out where am I at, or where should I go. So one big thing about ESFJs is they learn a great deal from their environment. Like I explained in the ENFJ video, you got to understand that with people, you're dealing with individuals. Some people write off people, like, who cares about talking to people? But as an ESFJ or FE dominant, talking to one person can be like talking to 30 people, because that one person has 30 people they might have communicated with. For each person has a wealth of information, a wealth of ideas, a wealth of experiences. So when that FE person is connected with you and learning your world, it's a very valuable thing for them, because you're helping open their world. You know what I mean? And they do have that NE as a third function. So they do have this inner world where they can piece together the way things look in their mind. But they need those proper bases. So with that being said, ESFJs very much so value information. You're dealing with people that very much so have a natural ability to lead and fit in well within good systems. ESFJs are actually very great at creating systems themselves. Very good at systems, because they have that introverted sensing, introverted thinking, that work together to constantly create systems that work, or that have been proven in the past. Okay. Another big thing about ESFJs is they have a level of discipline about them. especially when we talk about the body. Introverted sensing is very much so about the body. It's about being grounded. It's about being in this environment. And when it comes to a lot of ESFJs, they like to express themselves through like working out, training, athletics, things like that, to keep themselves and keep their body right. Um, uh, a lot of SI types that I know, and FE SI types, um, from the women I've known, a lot of them have done yoga, things like that. A lot of the guys that don't work out, bodybuilding. These are things that they use to keep themselves disciplined, because one big thing about SI is about discipline, specifically about discipline in the body. Because as an ESFJ, you have a different connection with your body than a lot of other types. With the SI being so high up, you're very much so intact with, like, if you don't feel right, if you feel an ache or something's going on, you really feel that, because your SI is so high up, you know when something's off. And so it's important that you take care of it. But it's hard because as an FE user, you want to connect with your environment. That includes food and things like that, you know? So that's one big thing. For any ESFJs out there, definitely work out, definitely be engaged in something that keeps you physically stimulated, because that's something that I notice ESFJs really need, you know, and to help keep them balanced. Another big thing about ESFJs, very fun. Um, they have that FE and that NE, and what that creates is they know how to connect with people. That SI then has a wealth of experiences that they can pull from, and then a lot of those experiences might be really funny. And then NE can intuitively see, like, oh no, this is funny, or like, oh yeah, I remember that was crazy. So a lot of time you're talking to ESFJs, like, they'll pull a wealth of stories out. Like, a lot of their communications are about things that have happened, things that played out in the past. Like, you remember this, you remember that. I remember this one time, this dude once told me. Like, it's very big. But the powerful thing, though, is they're not just telling you stories from the past like an old man, like, that is, trying to relive his life. They're telling you things that actually carry a lot of information in them, because you got to remember, whatever information they have gotten from people and remember, there's always a TI logic behind it, and there's always, like, value behind it. So ESFJs are people who can share with you a wealth of information, of great experiences that they've had, and a wealth of knowledge. And they're not afraid to share it, as long as they see you as a viable person who's trustworthy. That's another big thing I want to say about ESFJs. Trust, loyalty is huge. You don't want to break that with them, because they don't forget. And that SI is constantly keeping track of who's acting weird. Because the minute you act untrustworthy or anything like that, now you're a liability, because you got to remember, they premise their whole relationships and movements on what they can trust from the past. So if anything in that shakes, you now untrustworthy based on past experiences, and now they can't move forward with you. So that's one big thing about ESFJs. Like, it's about trust, it's about loyalty, it's about understanding. But one big thing is they got to respect you. One thing, and I guess I'll talk about pros and cons. It's like, one of the cons, I guess, I would tell ESFJs to work on is, don't just write everybody off. Like, the way ESFJs are, it's kind of like they will deal with you based on where you are or how they see you in the game. And if you look like you're not worthy of much, like, they'll write you off. If you're not dressed right, if there's something about you that's off, like, they're like, but if you come in with, like, a Mercedes, or you come in like they're like, what? Let me listen to this dude. So it's important that ESFJs just keep that energy that they naturally have, which is giving everybody an opportunity, because you can learn from everybody. And so another big thing for ESFJs is just to make sure to not be too limited by past events. A lot of ESFJs can get stuck because that SI can keep them stuck. And that third function is constantly trying to branch out and say, try this, but they're like, I want to try it, but I don't know. And then you find them in that FE SI loop where they keep connected with the same people, and then that makes them do the same things. And they go back and connect the same things, and they can't get out of this loop and move to that next level. So it's important that these types push themselves to keep advancing and to keep exploring and working with those new ideas. That's big. But when it comes to the pros, another big thing I just say for ESFJs is to not just depend on people, because FE is your first function, and I notice with a lot of ESFJs, they utilize their connections big time to grow, which is very important, especially in the social world we're in now. Social media is huge. Social connections are huge. As I said in the other video, 70% of jobs that people are getting come from social networks or some number like that. I'm not gonna say specifically this percentage, but just a guesstimate from what I had learned in school. And so this is a great time to be ESFJ when it comes to leveraging those connections, but don't just depend on the connections, because it's important that you tap into your greatness as well in what you're capable of doing. So just say that. But on the pros, ESFJs, though, the fact that I said that, they're great at leveraging their environment. And if they leverage their environment properly, they can move very high up in the game of life. And another big pro about ESFJs is they're willing to speak their mind. You can't really hold an ESFJ down unless they respect you enough to let you do that. Outside of that, they are very much so very powerful, carry themselves with a lot of dignity, respect, and they're not afraid from what I've seen. So that's big. And then another big thing about ESFJs, man, like, they got a dreamer in them. Like, that NE, you can't get around it. They have that FESI, so they may come off as traditional, very respectable. But then they have this NE that's like, yo, this is what I think randomly. Like, that's what's so fun about them, is that they have this traditional side. They do have this, like, okay, I want to do what's right for the group. I don't want to just bust out. Like, other types might be, who are NE dominant or SC dominant, might just be like, fuck the group. Like, they care about the group. But the thing is, they're willing to work within the group, and then they're still open to ideas of change. So they're kind of like a great balance of traditional, but a little bit radical. And that's what you need, or a little bit progressive, or revolutionary. And that's the kind of balance that's really good to have, especially for the other types that have friends that are ESFJs. You can learn a great deal from them because they'll give you very balanced ideas on how to move through the world based on what works relative to what you want to do. Okay, so that's huge. And so with that being said, man, ESFJs, wealth of information, wealth of experiences, great knowledge base, great people to communicate with, super fun, very expressive, very playful, but very serious and down to get dirty when it's time to do that, or when it's time to really handle business. They're ready, and that's what makes them so dope. Very versatile types. So with that being said, I mean, I hope you learned a lot about the ESFJs. Get ready. I'm going to start talking about the FI types, and we got more coming, man. Don't stop. So that being said, we'll talk soon.